Hi and welcome to Apex Atlas. Before there were nations, before there were kingdoms, before there was written history, there was this land. The vast plains of the Serengeti, the towering shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro, the warm currents of the Indian Ocean brushing the shores of Zanzibar. This is Tanzania, a place where humanity itself may have taken its earliest steps. From the ancient fossils of Olduvai Gorge, to the rise of Swahili city-states trading gold and ivory across oceans, from Omani sultans and European colonizers, to independence, union, and African socialism, Tanzania's story is not a single line. It is a meeting point. Africa and Arabia, tradition and trade, empire and resistance, revolution and unity. It is the story of a land that has always stood at a crossroads, of migration, of commerce, of culture. But more than that, it is the story of endurance, of communities that survived the slave trade, of resistance against colonial rule, of a nation built from two states, Tanganyika and Zanzibar, choosing unity over division. This is not just a story of wildlife and landscapes. This is the story of a nation shaped by oceans, savannas, and the will of its people. This is the history of Tanzania, the cradle of humanity prehistory, 1000 BCE. Long before there were kingdoms, long before there were borders, before even the word Africa existed, there was this land. The land that is now Tanzania sits along one of the most extraordinary geological features on Earth, the Great Rift Valley. Here, the Earth itself split open, mountains rose, volcanoes erupted, valleys deepened, and in that dramatic landscape, something even more extraordinary happened. Humanity began. The Rift Valley, nature's laboratory. The Great Rift Valley is not just scenery. It is a geological engine. Over millions of years, tectonic plates shifted, creating deep valleys and exposing ancient layers of Earth. For scientists, this is a gift, because when erosion strips away layers, it reveals fossils, bones that would otherwise remain buried forever. Tanzania became one of the most important windows into human origins, not because it was conquered, not because it was wealthy, but because it preserved the story of our species. Olduvai Gorge, the discovery that changed history. In northern Tanzania lies Olduvai Gorge. To the untrained eye, it looks like a dry, dramatic ravine. To archaeologists, it is sacred ground. In the 20th century, excavations here uncovered some of the oldest known hominin fossils ever found. Early human ancestors, millions of years old. These were not modern humans. They were earlier species. Upright walkers, tool users, intelligent survivors. Olduvai proved something revolutionary. Human evolution was deeply rooted in East Africa, and Tanzania stood at the center of that discovery. Litoli, the first footsteps. Not far from Olduvai lies Litoli. Here, preserved in volcanic ash, are footprints, nearly 3.6 million years old. Footprints of early hominins walking upright. Two individuals, side by side, frozen in time. These are among the oldest direct pieces of evidence that our ancestors walked on two legs. The ash from an ancient volcanic eruption preserved those steps like a photograph. It is a moment of prehistory made permanent. Tanzania holds not just bones, but the memory of movement itself. The Olduvai tools, humanity learns to shape the world. At Olduvai Gorge, archaeologists also uncovered simple stone tools. These tools belong to what is called the Olduvai industry, named after Olduvai itself. They are basic, sharp-edged stones, broken flakes, hand-sized cutting tools. But simple does not mean insignificant. These tools represent a breakthrough. The moment when early humans stopped simply adapting to nature and began shaping it. Toolmaking marks the beginning of technological thought. And it happened here. Climate, survival, and adaptation. Prehistoric Tanzania was not always the savanna we imagine today. Climate shifted constantly. Wet periods alternated with dry ones. Forests gave way to open grasslands. These changes forced early humans to adapt repeatedly. Adaptation drove evolution. Those who could walk longer distances, use tools, cooperate in groups, survived. Tanzania was not just the birthplace of humanity. It was the testing ground. From early hominids to Homo sapiens. Over hundreds of thousands of years, different human ancestors lived in this region. Eventually, modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged in Africa. While discoveries across East Africa contribute to this story, Tanzania's fossil record remains central. By around 100,000 years ago, early modern humans were spreading across the continent. Some would eventually leave Africa entirely, but they began here. The story of every human alive today traces back to landscapes like this. Hunter-gatherers of the late Stone Age. As prehistoric eras progressed, Tanzania became home to hunter-gatherer societies who lived in small, mobile communities. They hunted wild game, gathered fruits and roots, crafted improved tools, developed early art and ritual. These societies were deeply connected to their environment. Knowledge of land, seasons, and animals was survival itself. Some communities in East Africa preserved elements of this way of life for thousands of years. The dawn of agriculture. By around 1000 BCE, a major transformation was underway across parts of East Africa. Agriculture began spreading southward. Farming communities emerged. Ironworking knowledge moved through the region. Tanzania entered a new phase. From survival-based mobility to structured settlement. This transition would reshape society permanently. Villages formed. Population increased. Trade networks expanded. The prehistoric world was ending. History, in the traditional sense, was about to begin. Why this chapter matters. Many nations begin their stories with kings, or battles, or founding myths. Tanzania begins its story with humanity itself. The discoveries at Olduvai and Litoli place Tanzania not just at the heart of African history, but at the heart of human history. Before trade routes, before sultans, before colonial powers, there were footsteps in ash. There were stones shaped by hand. There were families learning to survive in a changing world. And those early choices shaped everything that followed. Standing on ancient ground. When you stand today in northern Tanzania, beneath the vast sky of the Serengeti, in the shadow of Kilimanjaro, or along the fractured ridges of the Rift Valley, you are standing where humanity learned to stand. That is not poetic exaggeration. It is archaeological fact. And as the Stone Age fades, Tanzania prepares for its next transformation. The arrival of new peoples, new technologies, new languages. The age of early African kingdoms and the Bantu expansion is about to reshape the land. Closing reflection. Tanzania's story does not begin with conquest. It begins with curiosity, with survival, with the first spark of innovation. Long before there were nations, there were footsteps, and they led forward. Early African kingdoms and the Bantu expansion 1000 BCE, 800 CE, when the land began to fill with language. After millions of years of evolution, after hunter-gatherers shaped stone tools beneath Rift Valley skies, a new transformation began. It did not happen in a single year. It did not happen through invasion alone. It happened through movement, through families walking, through villages forming, through language spreading like roots through soil. Between roughly 1000 BCE and 800 CE, the land that is now Tanzania experienced one of the most important demographic and cultural shifts in African history. The Bantu expansion. And with it came farming, iron, new social systems, and the foundations of much of Tanzania's modern cultural identity. The Bantu migration, a slow revolution. The Bantu were not a single tribe. They were a vast linguistic and cultural family whose origins trace back to West Central Africa. Over centuries, slowly, steadily, they moved south and east. Why? Several reasons likely drove this expansion. Agricultural knowledge, population growth, new iron technology, search for fertile land. The movement was gradual, generational, not an army sweeping across continents, but a wave of settlement that reshaped sub-Saharan Africa. And Tanzania lay directly in its path. Arrival in East Africa. As Bantu-speaking communities moved into East Africa, they encountered hunter-gatherer groups, pastoral communities, diverse landscapes. The land was not empty, but the Bantu brought powerful tools for survival: crop cultivation, iron working, livestock management, structured village life. In Tanzania's fertile highlands and lake regions, these systems thrived. The demographic balance began to shift. Iron changes everything. One of the most transformative technologies of this era was iron. Iron tools allowed stronger axes, better farming equipment, improved weapons, forest clearing at scale. Where stone tools had limited reach, iron opened entire landscapes. Forests were cleared for farming. Permanent villages replaced mobile camps. Iron did not just improve life, it accelerated social change. Tanzania entered the Iron Age. Village life and social structure. Early Bantu societies in Tanzania were organized around villages. These were not cities, but they were stable communities. Leadership was typically local. Authority often rested with elders or clan leaders. Social structure was based on kinship, lineage, shared labor, oral tradition. Communities worked together to plant crops, build homes, and defend against threats. This fostered strong social cohesion. Identity became tied not just to survival, but to ancestry and land. Agriculture takes root. Bantu communities introduced crops such as millet, sorghum, yams, bananas, later via Indian Ocean trade influence. In Tanzania's varied climate, highlands, lake regions, savanna, agriculture diversified. Near Lake Victoria, communities thrived on fishing and farming. In central Tanzania, cattle became symbols of wealth and status. Food production allowed population growth. Population growth allowed complexity, and complexity allowed the rise of early political organization. Language and identity spread. The Bantu expansion did something subtle but profound. It reshaped the linguistic map of Africa. Today, most languages spoken in Tanzania belong to the Bantu family. This linguistic continuity stretches back over 2 millennia. Language created shared identity across vast distances. Even when political structures differed, communication remained possible. This laid the groundwork for future cultural unity. Early chiefdoms and political organization. As villages expanded and populations grew, leadership evolved. Some settlements grew into early chiefdoms. These were not kingdoms in the later sense, but they had recognized leaders, tribute systems, regional influence, organized defense. Power remained local, but stronger than before. These early political systems would later evolve into more complex societies. Trade networks begin to form. Even before the famous Swahili Coast era, inland trade routes were forming. Communities exchanged iron tools, agricultural products, livestock, salt. Movement between interior regions and coastal areas increased. Tanzania's geography once again positioned it as a connector between interior Africa and the Indian Ocean world. That connection would soon explode into something much larger: spiritual life and ancestral belief. Religion during this era remained rooted in nature and ancestry. Communities believed in spiritual forces in land and sky, ancestral protection, ritual ceremonies tied to agriculture. These belief systems reinforced unity. They tied people to place. They strengthened lineage-based identity. Spiritual continuity would later blend with incoming religions rather than disappear entirely. Interaction with other groups. Bantu-speaking communities did not replace everyone they encountered. Interaction took many forms: coexistence, intermarriage, cultural blending, occasional conflict. Hunter-gatherer knowledge of terrain combined with agricultural stability. Cultural layers formed. Tanzania became a mosaic, not a single culture. This diversity remains visible today. By 800 CE, a transformed landscape. By around 800 CE, Tanzania looked very different from its Stone Age past. The land was dotted with farming villages, iron-working sites, emerging trade paths, structured communities. Population density increased. Agriculture stabilized food supplies. Language networks connected regions. The foundation was complete for the next dramatic transformation. Because soon, Tanzania's coast would link Africa to Arabia, Persia, India, and even China. The age of the Swahili coast was about to begin. Closing reflection, from survival to society. Chapter 1 was about humanity learning to survive. Chapter 2 is about humanity learning to organize. Through migration, iron, farming, and language, Tanzania became more than a prehistoric landscape. It became a living network of communities. And as those communities grew stronger, they looked outward, toward the sea, where ships were already approaching the East African coast. The Swahili Coast and Indian Ocean trade 800 to 1,500. When the ocean became a highway. For thousands of years, Tanzania's story unfolded inland, in valleys, lakes, and iron-forged villages. But by around 800 CE, the focus shifted east, toward the Indian Ocean. Because the ocean was not a barrier, it was a highway. Seasonal monsoon winds allowed ships to travel from Arabia, Persia, India, and beyond, arriving on the East African coast with astonishing reliability. And along that coast, in what is now Tanzania, something extraordinary emerged. The Swahili civilization, a network of city-states that would connect Africa to the wider world. The birth of the Swahili coast. The term Swahili comes from the Arabic word Sahil, meaning coast. But the Swahili were not outsiders. They were African communities shaped by Bantu roots, enriched by global contact. From around 800 CE onward, coastal settlements grew into thriving trading towns. Among the most powerful was Kilwa Kisiwani. Kilwa was not a village. It was a maritime powerhouse. Kilwa, the Gold Gateway. Kilwa's importance came from one key commodity: gold. Gold from inland Africa, especially regions linked to Great Zimbabwe, flowed through trade routes to the coast. From there, it sailed across the Indian Ocean. Kilwa became wealthy by controlling this network. Its rulers built coral stone palaces, mosques, fortified trading centers. Wealth from African resources met global demand. Tanzania became part of a vast commercial system stretching from China to the Middle East. The rise of Zanzibar. Further north along the coast, Zanzibar began to grow in importance. Its location made it a natural stop for ships riding monsoon winds. Zanzibar became a trade hub, a cultural crossroads, a center of Islamic scholarship. Over time, its identity blended African, Arab, and Persian influences into something unique. This blending created a new coastal culture, Swahili culture, the language of trade. Out of this fusion emerged the Swahili language. Rooted in Bantu structure, enriched with Arabic vocabulary, Swahili became the lingua franca of East African trade. Language did more than facilitate commerce. It built identity. It unified coastal communities across hundreds of miles. and it remains one of Tanzania's national languages today. Islam arrives and transforms the coast. With trade came faith. Islam spread along the Swahili coast through merchants and scholars. It was not imposed by conquest. It was adopted through exchange. Mosques rose in coastal cities. Islamic law shaped trade practices. Education expanded. The Swahili coast became deeply integrated into the Islamic world, while remaining distinctly African. Dhow ships and monsoon winds. The engine of this era was the dhow, a traditional sailing vessel perfectly suited to Indian Ocean conditions. Using predictable monsoon winds, merchants could sail from Arabia to East Africa, wait for seasonal wind reversal, return home months later. This rhythm created annual cycles of trade. Ivory, gold, tortoiseshell, and enslaved people left Africa. Textiles, ceramics, spices, and beads arrived. The coast became cosmopolitan. Urban life in Swahili cities. Swahili city-states were urban in character. They featured stone-built houses, narrow streets, marketplaces, mosques with carved doorways. Elite families traced ancestry through both African and foreign lineages. Political authority often rested with merchant elites. These were not empires with large armies. They were trade republics, wealthy through connection, not conquest. A network, not a kingdom. The Swahili coast was not unified under one ruler. It was a network of city-states. Kilwa, Mombasa, Pemba, Zanzibar, and others. They competed and cooperated. Each city balanced local identity with global trade. This decentralized system allowed flexibility, but also vulnerability. Because when outside powers noticed this wealth, they would want control. Trade beyond the ocean. The Swahili coast did not only trade outward, it traded inland. Caravan routes stretched deep into East Africa. Goods moved between lake regions, inland chiefdoms, coastal ports. This made Tanzania a connector between interior Africa and global markets. The coast and interior became economically intertwined. Cultural identity forms. By 1500, Swahili culture was mature. It was African at its core, Islamic in faith, global in outlook, maritime in spirit. Architecture, poetry, and law reflected this hybrid identity. Tanzania's coast was no longer peripheral. It was central to Indian Ocean civilization. The storm approaches, but history shifts quickly. In 1498, a Portuguese explorer named Vasco da Gama sailed into East African waters. He was not coming to trade as equals. He was coming to control. The balance of the Indian Ocean was about to change, and the Swahili coast would face its greatest challenge yet. Closing reflection, Tanzania enters the world stage. This chapter marks Tanzania's transformation from regional society to global participant. Through gold, ivory, and ocean winds, the coast connected Africa to the wider world. Language evolved. Cities flourished. Faith spread. The Swahili civilization proved something powerful. Tanzania was not isolated. It was internationally engaged centuries before Europe's colonial era began. But engagement brings exposure, and exposure invites empire. In the next chapter, European powers arrive, not as merchants, but as rulers. Portuguese arrival and coastal struggle 1498–1700s, when the balance of the ocean broke. For centuries, the Swahili coast thrived. Ships followed monsoon winds. Gold flowed through Kilwa. Zanzibar prospered. Islamic scholars taught beneath coral stone arches. The Indian Ocean was a shared commercial world. Arab, Persian, Indian, and African merchants traded as partners. Then, in 1498, everything shifted. A fleet flying foreign flags appeared on the horizon. Led by Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese had arrived, not merely to trade, but to dominate. And the coast of what is now Tanzania would never be the same. The Portuguese mission: control the ocean. Portugal's ambition was clear: break Muslim trade networks, control the spice routes, monopolize Indian Ocean commerce. Unlike previous traders, the Portuguese brought cannons. Their ships were armed heavily. They were not integrating into the trade system. They intended to reshape it. This was not partnership. It was imperial strategy. Kilwa Falls. One of the first targets was Kilwa Kisiwani. Once the wealthiest city-state on the Swahili coast, Kilwa controlled gold routes from inland Africa. The Portuguese attacked and occupied it in the early 1500s. They built forts, installed loyal rulers, imposed tribute. Kilwa's golden age faded rapidly. The autonomy of the Swahili coast was cracking. Fortresses over markets. Where Swahili cities built mosques and merchant houses, the Portuguese built fortresses. Stone walls rose to protect European interests. Cannons pointed toward the sea. Control of ports became central. Portuguese power was maritime and military. They did not fully colonize inland Tanzania, but they dominated coastal choke points. And that was enough to disrupt centuries-old trade systems. Trade disrupted, wealth declines. The Portuguese inserted themselves into trade networks by force. They demanded taxes from ships. They redirected commerce through their own ports. This weakened Swahili city-states economically. Gold routes declined. Competition intensified. Some cities cooperated. Others resisted. But the balance had shifted permanently. Resistance along the coast. The Swahili were not passive. Coastal cities rebelled repeatedly. Alliances formed against Portuguese authority. Arab and Persian connections remained strong. Islamic solidarity against Christian European expansion grew. The Portuguese could occupy ports, but they could not fully control identity. Resistance simmered for generations. A changing coastal society. Portuguese rule introduced new dynamics. Christianity appeared in small pockets. European goods entered local markets. Militarization increased. But Swahili culture did not vanish. Language remained. Islam remained dominant. Architecture continued blending influences. Tanzania's coast absorbed foreign power without losing its core identity. Interior Tanzania remains largely unchanged. While the coast felt heavy pressure, inland Tanzania experienced less direct Portuguese control. Bantu-speaking societies inland continued. Farming, cattle herding, local trade, regional political development. The Ocean War reshaped coastal politics, but the interior followed its own path. This duality, coastal exposure, inland continuity, became a recurring Tanzanian pattern. The slow decline of Portuguese power. By the late 1600s, Portuguese influence weakened. They were overstretched globally. European rivals challenged them elsewhere. On the Swahili Coast, new powers rose to contest control. Among them, the Omani Arabs. Oman enters the struggle. From the Arabian Peninsula, Omani forces challenged Portuguese dominance. They shared cultural and religious ties with the Swahili Coast. By the late 17th century, Portuguese strongholds began falling. One by one, coastal cities shifted allegiance. The Portuguese era in Tanzania was ending, but it left scars. It marked the beginning of sustained European interference in East Africa, and it proved that global empires now viewed the region as strategically vital. The coast after Portuguese rule. When Portuguese power declined, Swahili autonomy did not fully return. Instead, new leadership from Oman reshaped the region. Zanzibar would rise. Trade would expand again. But the nature of trade would darken. Because the next era would be marked not only by spices and gold, but by slavery on an industrial scale. Closing reflection. The ocean turns violent. Chapter 3 showed us a thriving maritime civilization. Chapter 4 shows us what happens when global power arrives with cannons. The Portuguese did not erase Swahili culture, but they disrupted its balance. They militarized the Indian Ocean. They introduced European imperial ambition to East Africa, and they proved that Tanzania's coast was too valuable to ignore. The next chapter will see a new power take control, not from Europe, but from Arabia. And Zanzibar will rise as one of the most powerful cities in East Africa. Omani rule and the rise of Zanzibar 1700s-1800s. When Zanzibar became the beating heart of East Africa. By the late 1600s, Portuguese power along the Swahili coast was fading. The cannons that once dominated the ocean fell silent. And from across the Arabian Sea, a new power stepped forward. Oman. Unlike the Portuguese, the Omanis did not arrive as strangers to the region. They shared religion with the Swahili coast. They shared trading networks. They understood the rhythms of the monsoon. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, the island of Zanzibar would rise as the political and economic center of what is now Tanzania. This chapter is one of wealth and darkness, of spices and ships, of global trade and human suffering. Because under Omani rule, Zanzibar became one of the most powerful cities in the Indian Ocean, and one of the largest centers of the East African slave trade. The fall of Portuguese power. In 1698, Omani forces expelled the Portuguese from key coastal strongholds. Control of much of the Swahili coast shifted. The Omanis did not attempt to erase Swahili culture. Instead, they integrated into it. But political authority now flowed from Muscat and later from Zanzibar itself. The balance of power had shifted from European military dominance to Arab commercial and political leadership. Zanzibar's strategic advantage. Zanzibar's geography made it ideal. Close to mainland trade routes, protected natural harbors, fertile soil, access to monsoon wind systems. By the early 1800s, Zanzibar had outgrown other coastal cities. It became the capital of an expanding East African Omani domain. In 1840, the Omani Sultan even moved his capital from Muscat to Zanzibar. That decision transformed the island into the center of regional power. The Clove Revolution. One crop changed everything. Cloves. Introduced and cultivated on a massive scale in Zanzibar, clove plantations generated enormous wealth. Spices were highly valued globally. Demand was constant. Plantations expanded rapidly. But plantations required labor, and that labor demand intensified the slave trade dramatically. The East African slave trade. While slavery existed before Omani rule, this period saw it reach industrial scale. Enslaved Africans were captured from inland regions and transported to Zanzibar plantations, Arabian markets, Persian Gulf territories, Indian Ocean islands. Caravan routes stretched deep into the interior of Tanzania. Human beings became commodities. The scale of suffering was immense. Zanzibar became one of the largest slave trading hubs in the world during the 19th century. This remains one of the most painful chapters in Tanzanian history. Stone Town, a cosmopolitan power center. Zanzibar's capital, now known as Stone Town, flourished. It was not a small port. It was a cosmopolitan city. Arab traders, Indian merchants, African elites, and European consuls all lived there. Stone buildings replaced wooden ones. Carved doors displayed wealth and artistry. Markets overflowed with goods from across 3 continents. Zanzibar was a global city, but its prosperity rested on exploitation. The interior and coastal connection. Omani rule strengthened links between the coast and inland Tanzania. Caravan networks expanded. Goods flowing from inland included ivory, gold, enslaved people. In return, inland communities received cloth, beads, metal tools, firearms. This trade reshaped power dynamics in the interior. Some African leaders grew wealthy through participation in these networks. Others resisted violently. Tanzania's interior was no longer isolated. It was tied into global commerce. Islam expands inland. Under Omani influence, Islam spread further into mainland Tanzania. Swahili culture deepened its religious roots. Mosques appeared not just along the coast, but gradually inland. Islam became part of Tanzania's social fabric. Yet traditional belief systems persisted as well. Tanzania remained religiously diverse. European interest intensifies. By the mid-1800s, European powers began paying closer attention. Missionaries arrived. Explorers mapped the interior. Abolitionists condemned the slave trade. Britain, in particular, pressured Zanzibar to limit and eventually end slavery. Treaties were signed. Enforcement was inconsistent. But the global political tide was shifting. The age of European colonial expansion was accelerating. The end of Omani dominance approaches. While Zanzibar remained powerful, its independence weakened under European pressure. Britain established increasing influence over the island. Economic changes reduced the dominance of clove plantations. By the late 19th century, the scramble for Africa had begun, and Tanzania's fate would once again be decided by external empires. Legacy of the Omani era. The Omani period left deep marks on Tanzania. Swahili culture strengthened. Islam expanded. Zanzibar became iconic. Coastal architecture flourished. Trade networks deepened. But it also left trauma. The slave trade reshaped demography, memory, and identity. The wealth of Zanzibar was built on suffering. This complexity defines the era. Closing reflection. A coast at the center of the world. Under Omani rule, Tanzania's coast became globally central. Zanzibar rivaled major Indian Ocean ports. Trade connected Africa to Arabia, India, and beyond. Yet prosperity came at a moral cost. As European empires intensified their reach, Tanzania stood on the brink of another transformation. This time, it would not be coastal rulers shaping trade. It would be colonial powers carving territory. The next chapter marks the arrival of Germany and the beginning of formal colonial rule. German East Africa, colonial rule and resistance 1880s-1918. When lines were drawn on a map. In the late 19th century, Africa was divided in rooms far away from Africa. No Tanzanian leader was present. No coastal merchant voted. No inland chief consented. In 1884–85, European powers met at the Berlin Conference and carved the continent into colonial territories. And the land that is now Tanzania became something new. German East Africa. This chapter is about force, about railways and rifles, plantations and punishment, resistance and rebellion. Because colonial rule in Tanzania was not gradual, it was imposed. Germany arrives late and aggressively. Germany was a newly unified empire, eager to compete with Britain and France. East Africa offered land, labor, raw materials, strategic coastline. Through treaties, many coerced, and military action, Germany claimed vast territory. Tanganyika, mainland Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi were combined into one colonial unit. The era of indirect influence ended. Direct rule began. Military conquest and pacification. German control was not accepted quietly. Coastal communities resisted. Inland leaders opposed foreign authority. Germany responded with military force. Villages were burned. Leaders were executed. Resistance was crushed through intimidation. Colonial language called this pacification. For Tanzanians, it was subjugation. Colonial economy, plantations and extraction. Germany transformed parts of Tanzania into plantation zones. Cash crops such as cotton, sisal, coffee were cultivated for export to Europe. African communities were often forced into labor systems. Taxes were imposed. People who could not pay were required to work. The economy was redesigned, not for Tanzanian prosperity, but for imperial profit. Infrastructure for control. Germany built infrastructure, railways, ports, administrative towns. The Central Railway line connected inland regions to the coast. This modernized transportation, but it also tightened colonial control. Railways moved goods outward and soldiers inward. Infrastructure was both development and domination. The Moji Moji Rebellion, 1905 to 1907. By the early 20th century, resentment reached breaking point. In 1905, a widespread uprising erupted in southern Tanzania. It became known as the Moji Moji Rebellion. The name Moji Moji came from a belief that sacred water, Moji, would protect warriors from German bullets. The rebellion united multiple ethnic groups. That unity was remarkable. For once, resistance crossed tribal lines. But German retaliation was devastating. Scorched earth tactics destroyed crops and villages. Famine followed. Tens of thousands died. The rebellion was crushed, but it left a permanent scar. After the rebellion, reform and control. Shaken by the scale of violence, Germany modified some policies. Brutal labor systems were softened slightly. Administrative systems became more structured, but colonial hierarchy remained intact. German officers governed. African voices were excluded from meaningful power. Colonial rule continued, more organized, but still unequal. World War I comes to East Africa. In 1914, Europe descended into war. World War I reached East Africa. German forces in Tanzania fought prolonged campaigns against British and Allied troops. The war here was brutal and mobile. Local Tanzanians were conscripted as porters and soldiers. Thousands died from combat, disease, and exhaustion. The war drained the colony, and when Germany lost the war in Europe, it lost East Africa too. 1918, the end of German rule. With Germany's defeat in World War I, its colonies were redistributed. German East Africa did not become independent. Instead, it was handed to Britain under a League of Nations mandate. Tanganyika was now under British control. The colonial flag changed, but colonial rule continued. The legacy of the German era. The German period was relatively short, about 3 decades, but its impact was deep. It introduced centralized colonial administration, plantation economies, large-scale infrastructure, harsh military suppression. It also triggered one of the earliest major anti-colonial uprisings in Africa. The Moji Moji Rebellion became a symbol of unity and resistance. Though defeated, it planted seeds of future nationalism. Closing reflection, resistance under empire. German rule marked Tanzania's full entry into the European colonial system. Borders were formalized. Economies were reshaped. Society was subordinated. Yet resistance never vanished. From coastal revolts to the Moji Moji uprising, Tanzanians proved they would not submit quietly. And when Britain took control after World War I, a new phase began. one that would eventually produce a leader who would reshape the nation forever. His name was Julius Nyerere. British Mandate and National Awakening 1919 to 1961. A new flag, the same empire. When World War I ended, German rule in East Africa collapsed. But independence did not follow. Instead, the League of Nations handed Tanganyika to Britain as a mandate territory. The name German East Africa disappeared. But the land that is now Tanzania remained under foreign control. The uniforms changed. The language of authority shifted. But colonial hierarchy endured. Yet beneath British administration, something new began to grow. Not rebellion through weapons, but resistance through organization. This chapter is the birth of modern Tanzanian nationalism. The mandate system, colonialism rebranded. Britain governed Tanganyika under the League of Nations mandate system. Officially, this meant Britain ruled as a trustee, preparing the territory for eventual self-government. In reality, it was colonial rule in a new form. British administration introduced indirect rule through local chiefs, expanded cash crop agriculture, missionary education systems, tighter economic integration with the British Empire. Control was softer than German militarism, but it was still control. Indirect rule and local authority. Unlike the Germans, Britain often governed through existing local structures. Chiefs were recognized or appointed. Traditional authority was reshaped to serve colonial needs. This system created tension. Some leaders gained power through colonial backing. Others lost legitimacy among their people. British rule relied on division and management rather than direct force. But inequality remained built into the system. Economic change and social strain. Tanganyika's economy remained focused on exports. Cash crops expanded. Coffee, sisal, cotton. African farmers bore the burden of production. Profits flowed outward. Infrastructure improved slowly, but rural poverty remained widespread. Urban centers like Dar es Salaam grew. With growth came new ideas. And with ideas came questions. Education and a new generation. Missionary schools spread literacy. A small but growing African educated class emerged. These individuals would become teachers, clerks, civil servants. They were exposed to global ideas. Democracy, self-determination, anti-colonial thought. Education became the seedbed of political awakening. Among this new generation was a young teacher named Julius Nyerere. World War II and rising expectations. World War II reshaped global politics. African soldiers fought in imperial armies. They saw the world beyond colonial boundaries. After the war, returning veterans expected change. At the same time, the United Nations replaced the League of Nations. The mandate system transitioned into a UN trusteeship. International pressure for decolonization increased. Empire was weakening globally. Tanganyika felt the shift. The rise of TONU. In 1954, Julius Nyerere helped form the Tanganyika African National Union, TONU. Unlike earlier resistance movements, TONU was organized, strategic, and inclusive. It focused on peaceful political mobilization, rural outreach, national unity across ethnic groups. Nyerere understood something critical. Tanganyika was ethnically diverse. Independence would require unity, not fragmentation. He avoided tribal politics deliberately. This would define Tanzania's future, a different kind of resistance. TONU did not organize violent rebellion. It built mass support, village by village, meeting by meeting, speech by speech. The message was simple: Tanganyika must govern itself. British authorities recognized the growing momentum, and unlike some colonial powers, Britain began negotiating transition rather than escalating repression. 1961, independence achieved. On the 9th of December, 1961, Tanganyika became independent. The colonial flag lowered. A new nation stood. Julius Nyerere became Prime Minister, and soon after, President. For the first time in modern history, Tanzanians ruled themselves. But one major question remained. What about Zanzibar? The Zanzibar question. While mainland Tanganyika gained independence peacefully, Zanzibar remained a separate British protectorate. Its population was ethnically and politically complex. Arab elites, African majority, historical legacy of slavery and trade. Tensions were high. The future of the coast and the mainland would soon intertwine. Closing reflection: A Nation Awakens. Chapter 6 showed us colonial force. Chapter 7 shows us political awakening. Tanganyika did not achieve independence through prolonged war. It achieved it through organization, unity, and leadership. Under Nyerere, nationalism became inclusive, not tribal. Peaceful, not chaotic. The foundation was laid for something rare in post-colonial Africa: stability through unity. But before the modern nation could take shape fully, revolution would erupt on Zanzibar. And from that revolution would come a bold decision: to unite two territories into one country. Independence and union. The birth of a nation 1961 to 1964. Freedom, and then fire. On the 9th of December, 1961, Tanganyika celebrated independence. Flags waved. Crowds gathered. Colonial rule ended peacefully. Under the leadership of Julius Nyerere, the mainland had achieved sovereignty without war. It was one of the most orderly transitions in Africa. But just 2 years later, events on the coast would shake the region violently. Because while Tanganyika stood free, Zanzibar stood divided. And division would ignite revolution. This chapter is the moment when two histories, mainland and island, collided. And from that collision emerged a new country, Tanzania. Tanganyika after independence. Following independence, Tanganyika faced immediate challenges: building institutions, forming a national identity, managing economic weakness, balancing ethnic diversity. Nyerere emphasized unity above all. He discouraged tribal politics. He promoted Swahili as a national language. He sought to avoid the instability that plagued many newly independent states. But offshore, tensions were rising. Zanzibar, a different political reality. Zanzibar's path had been different. For centuries, it had been ruled by Arab elites under Omani influence. Its population was mixed. African majority, Arab minority elite, Indian commercial community. Political competition intensified as independence approached. Elections in 1963 created bitterness and accusations of imbalance. Just weeks after Zanzibar gained independence from Britain, everything exploded. The Zanzibar Revolution, January 1964. In January 1964, revolution broke out. The Arab-dominated government was overthrown. Violence erupted. Thousands were killed in chaotic clashes. The revolution fundamentally reshaped Zanzibar's power structure. African-led leadership took control, but the region was unstable. Cold War tensions were rising globally, and Western powers feared Zanzibar could become a foothold for communist influence. A strategic decision, union. Faced with regional uncertainty, Nyerere moved quickly. In April 1964, Tanganyika and Zanzibar agreed to unite. The two territories formed a single state, the United Republic of Tanzania. The name itself combined the two. Tanganyika plus Zanzibar equals Tanzania. This was not inevitable. It was deliberate. And it was bold. Why the union mattered? The union achieved several goals. Stabilized Zanzibar after revolution, strengthened regional security, prevented Cold War escalation, created a larger, more viable state. Zanzibar retained semi-autonomous status within the Union. It kept its own president and internal government. But foreign policy and defense were unified. This dual structure remains unique today, a rare African experiment. In the 1960s, many African nations struggled with post-independence instability, coups, civil wars, ethnic conflict. Tanzania chose a different path: unity over fragmentation, peace over revenge. Nyerere's vision prioritized national identity above regional identity. Swahili became the binding thread. It was one of the few African states to avoid major post-independence violence. Building a national identity. The Union created a new challenge. How do you unite two territories with different histories? Tanganyika had experienced German and British colonial rule. Zanzibar had a deep Arab and maritime legacy. The answer was language and shared vision. Swahili became central to governance and education. National unity was framed not as ethnic, but civic. You were Tanzanian, not because of tribe or island, but because you belonged to the Union. Cold War pressures. The mid-1960s were tense globally. The Cold War divided the world. African states were often pressured to align with either the West or the Soviet bloc. Tanzania pursued a non-aligned approach. It maintained independence in foreign policy. It supported liberation movements across southern Africa. It positioned itself as a voice for African self-determination. The Union gave Tanzania greater regional influence. The beginning of a new chapter. By 1964, Tanzania was officially born. A mainland and an island merged. A peaceful independence and a violent revolution combined. The new state faced enormous economic and political challenges. But it had something rare. A clear ideological direction under Nyerere. That direction would soon take shape in a bold experiment. African socialism, known as Ujamaa. Closing reflection, unity over division. Chapter 7 gave Tanganyika independence. Chapter 8 gave the world Tanzania. The union was not perfect. It required compromise. It required trust. It required restraint during a volatile moment. But it prevented fragmentation. It avoided foreign domination. And it created one of Africa's most stable post-colonial states. In the next chapter, Nyerere attempts something ambitious. To build a socialist society rooted in African values. It will inspire admiration and spark controversy. Ujamaa, Socialism and Nation Building 1964 to 1985. A nation chooses its own path. By 1964, the United Republic of Tanzania was young, fragile, and watching the world divide. The Cold War was at its height. Capitalism and communism competed for influence across Africa. Many newly independent states were collapsing into coups or civil war. But Tanzania made a radical decision. It would not copy Europe. It would not fully align with East or West. Instead, under President Julius Nyerere, it would attempt something uniquely African. Ujamaa, a form of African socialism rooted in community. This chapter is about vision and about consequences. The Arusha Declaration, 1967. In 1967, Nyerere announced the Arusha Declaration. It became the ideological foundation of modern Tanzania. The declaration outlined several key principles: self-reliance, nationalization of major industries, rural collectivization, equality over elite wealth, rejection of colonial economic dependency. Banks were nationalized. Large businesses were brought under state control. Education and health were expanded rapidly. The goal was clear: build a society where no one was left behind. Ujamaa villages, community as policy. At the heart of Ujamaa was rural collectivization. Millions of Tanzanians were encouraged, or in some cases required, to relocate into organized Ujamaa villages. These villages were designed to centralize farming, improve access to schools and clinics, promote shared labor, strengthen national unity. The philosophy was simple. Traditional African life was communal. Socialism could reflect that heritage, but implementation was difficult. Some villages worked well, others struggled. Relocation disrupted long-standing rural patterns. Not all communities embraced it willingly. Education revolution. One of Ujamaa's greatest successes was education. Primary school enrollment surged. Literacy rates improved dramatically. Swahili became the language of instruction, strengthening national identity. For the first time, rural Tanzanians had broad access to schooling. Education became a national priority. This investment shaped future generations profoundly. Healthcare and social services. Healthcare expanded into rural areas. Clinics were built. Vaccination campaigns launched. Infant mortality declined over time. Despite economic constraints, Tanzania achieved impressive social gains compared to many peers. Equality was prioritized over rapid industrial wealth. The results were mixed, but socially significant. Economic struggles and structural weakness. While social programs expanded, economic reality became harder. State-controlled industries often lacked efficiency. Agricultural output sometimes fell under collectivization. Global oil crises in the 1970s hurt the economy. Foreign debt increased. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Tanzania faced severe economic strain. Food shortages occurred. Infrastructure deteriorated. The dream of full self-reliance proved difficult in a globalized world. Foreign policy and regional leadership. Despite domestic challenges, Tanzania played a major role in African politics. Nyerere supported liberation movements in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa. Tanzania became a safe haven for anti-apartheid activists. It positioned itself as a moral voice in Africa. In 1978–79, Tanzania even fought and defeated Uganda's dictator Idi Amin after Ugandan forces invaded Tanzanian territory. This strengthened Tanzania's regional standing. The cost of idealism. Ujamaa was admired globally by some as a humane alternative to both capitalism and Soviet-style communism. But internally, economic stagnation grew harder to ignore. By the early 1980s, state industries were struggling. Productivity was low. External debt mounted. Nyerere remained personally respected for integrity and modest living. But the economic model faced mounting criticism. 1985, a peaceful transition. In 1985, Nyerere stepped down voluntarily. This was rare in post-colonial Africa. Power transferred peacefully. His departure marked the end of Tanzania's most idealistic phase. Reform would follow. The country would gradually move toward economic liberalization. But Ujamaa left a permanent mark. Strong national identity, widespread use of Swahili, relative ethnic harmony, a culture of political stability. Even critics acknowledge that Tanzania avoided the civil wars that devastated many neighboring states. What Ujamaa achieved and what it didn't. Ujamaa succeeded in promoting unity, expanding education, building national cohesion, avoiding large-scale ethnic conflict. It struggled in sustained economic growth, industrial productivity, long-term financial independence. It remains one of Africa's most studied social experiments. Closing reflection, vision meets reality. Chapter 8 gave Tanzania birth. Chapter 9 gave it ideology. Ujamaa was ambitious. It sought to create equality without losing cultural identity. It aimed to protect dignity in a world of superpower pressure. Its legacy is complex, but one thing is clear. Tanzania emerged from the Cold War not fractured, but intact. And as the global order shifted in the late 1980s, a new chapter began. One of reform, tourism, economic change, and modern global integration. Modern Tanzania, reform, growth, and a global presence 1985 present. From ideology to adaptation. By 1985, Tanzania stood at a crossroads. 2 decades of Jama socialism had built unity and literacy, but the economy was strained. President Julius Nyerere stepped down voluntarily. That decision alone signaled something important. Tanzania would evolve through reform, not revolution. The Cold War was ending. Global markets were opening. Africa was changing. And so was Tanzania. Economic liberalization begins. Under new leadership, Tanzania began gradual economic reform. State control loosened. Private enterprise expanded. Foreign investment was encouraged. Structural adjustment programs, often guided by international institutions, reshaped policy. Subsidies were reduced. Currency reforms were introduced. Trade barriers lowered. These reforms were not painless. Inflation rose. Public services faced pressure. Inequality became more visible, but growth slowly returned. Multi-party democracy. In 1992, Tanzania reintroduced multi-party politics. This marked a major shift from single-party dominance. Elections became competitive. Opposition voices emerged more openly. While political tensions occasionally flared, Tanzania avoided the large-scale violence that affected some neighboring states. The country's long-standing emphasis on unity helped stabilize democratic transition, economic growth, and urban expansion. By the 2000s and 2010s, Tanzania's economy accelerated. Key sectors included mining, especially gold, tourism, telecommunications, agriculture, natural gas. Cities expanded rapidly. Dar es Salaam transformed into a modern commercial hub. Infrastructure projects improved roads, ports, and regional connectivity. The country increasingly integrated into East African trade networks. Tourism and global image. Few countries possess natural icons like Tanzania, home to Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest peak, and the vast plains of the Serengeti National Park. Tanzania became a premier global tourism destination. Wildlife safaris, conservation parks, and Zanzibar's beaches drew millions. Tourism provided revenue and global visibility, but it also required careful environmental management. Balancing growth with conservation became a central challenge. Zanzibar's unique position. Zanzibar retained semi-autonomous status within the Union. It has its own president and internal governance. Political competition there has sometimes been more tense than on the mainland. Yet the Union has endured. For over half a century, mainland and island have remained united. This is rare in post-colonial state formation. Challenges of the modern era. Modern Tanzania faces ongoing issues. Rapid population growth, urban poverty, corruption concerns, balancing political openness with stability. Economic growth has not eliminated inequality. Access to education and healthcare has improved, but disparities remain. Globalization brings opportunity and vulnerability. Regional leadership. Tanzania remains a stabilizing force in East Africa. It is active in regional bodies such as the East African Community. It participates in peacekeeping missions. It continues the tradition of diplomatic moderation established under Nyerere. Unlike many nations shaped by colonial borders, Tanzania has largely avoided internal ethnic conflict. National identity remains civic rather than tribal. That legacy may be one of its greatest achievements. A new generation. More than half of Tanzania's population is under 25. This generation did not experience Ujamaa firsthand. They grew up in a globalized, digital world. Mobile phones connect rural and urban areas. Entrepreneurship is rising. Music, fashion, and media reflect vibrant youth culture. The question for this generation is different. Not how do we achieve independence, but how do we compete globally? The enduring strength of identity. From prehistoric footprints at Litoli, to Swahili city-states, to colonial borders, to socialist villages, to modern skyscrapers, Tanzania's identity has been shaped by adaptation. It has absorbed influence without losing cohesion. It has endured empire, revolution, ideology, and reform. And today, it stands as one of Africa's more stable and recognizable nations. Closing reflection, from cradle to nation. Tanzania's story began before written history. It passed through ocean trade and colonial rule. It experimented boldly with socialism. It reformed carefully. And it continues to evolve. Not perfect, not without challenge, but resilient. Few nations can claim to be both. One of humanity's earliest homes, and a modern state still shaping its future. And that journey, from ancient Rift Valley origins to a sovereign 21st century republic, is what makes Tanzania's history extraordinary. From the ancient footprints of Litoli to the gold roots of Kilwa, from the rise of Zanzibar, through colonial rule, revolution, and reform, the story of Tanzania is not just a story of landscapes. It is a story of resilience. A land where humanity first walked upright. A coast that connected Africa to the world. A nation that chose unity over division. And a people who shaped their own path through ideology, reform, and modern growth. Empires came. Flags changed. Ideas rose and fell. But Tanzania endured. If you enjoyed this journey through Tanzanian history, please like the video. It helps more people discover these stories. And for more deep dives into history, geography, and the stories that shaped our world, subscribe to Apex Atlas and join us on the next adventure. History isn't just about the past. It's about understanding the present. And the world is full of stories still waiting to be told. Until next time.